Welcome to Functionally Speaking, the podcast where two clinicians share one brain cell and way too many opinions.
I'm Laura, your mineral-obsessed dietitian who gets fired up about gut health, metabolism, and fertility, with enough sass to keep it interesting and enough nuance to keep it real.
And I'm Danielle, a physician assistant obsessed with gut health, hormones, and calling out bullshit.
We're here for the nuance, the hot takes, the facts your certification skipped over, and the occasional spiral into chaos.
If you're a health coach, practitioner, or clinician who's slightly functional, just like our mitochondria in our recording process, you're in the right place.
We're not here to sugarcoat the science or pretend there's one right way to do this work. We're doing it our way, unfiltered, slightly feral, and always with love for the humans we serve. Let's get into it.
Welcome back to the clinical pod that spirals responsibly. Here we are. Oh, I don't have my yoga block under my feet, so I'm going to be like, I use the yoga block on my foot so it's like supported because my feet don't touch the ground. And I mean, I guess I could lower my chair and lower the desk.
You could, yes. Well, now we're all just going to be worried about your feet dangling this whole time.
They'll be fine. What are we talking about today?
Well, let's see if Danielle can hold us together. It's about determining the appropriate amount of exercise for your clients, because when most of us are working through clients, we're looking at a whole holistic approach, right? We're not just looking at this is your iron, this is how to fix it, right? We're looking at the whole body, whole person, and understanding how that applies, what applies and what needs to be improved, what needs to be talked about. And exercise is a huge one because it's so impactful to our overall health and longevity. But it can get hairy because we have people on both sides of the spectrum, right? We have people who aren't working out enough or don't like workouts or whatever. And then we have people who their workout is their therapy and working out is not a replacement for therapy, even though it could be therapeutic.
Marcus said that to me yesterday when I was riffing off about that. He's like, but exercise is therapy, Danielle. And I was like, I literally wanted to throw a rock at his head.
It's therapeutic, right? And I think that's the difference.
Yes, 100%. 100%.
Is people sometimes conflate the two, and that's where I think it gets icky sticky. Not to mention, I think that icky sticky bubblegum.
One of us has children.
Let me sing you a
The other one does not.
A good Miss Rachel. Gotta love Miss Rachel. She's raising our children. But yeah, I think that there's also, we've talked a little bit about over-exercising, which we'll get into as well, and how sometimes it's more compensatory than necessarily just over-exercising, right? There's a reason, I guess compulsive is the better word, if someone is like unable to not. And so I think that it's important to understand and ask the right questions, right? We've talked about this before of like having a good intake makes all the difference. And then having these good questions with your clients can help you evaluate what they're doing and their history, right? Because most people are not showing up at your door after just starting Pilates for the first time. A lot of them come to your door after whatever it might be, right? Youth sports, college sports, overtraining at the gym at college to be able to drink more at night, right? There's a whole history behind a lot of people, and it's digging into that history as well as their present day to really understand where they've been. I don't know about you, Danielle, but I was a former athlete, as was Danielle, but a lot of my clients who are former athletes tend to be the most depleted humans that I work with. And I always tell people that empathetically. Like, I'm not telling you this to shame you. I am you. Like, I came from a background of heavy exercise and working out because of sport. And so sometimes that also will dictate how I show up for a client based on their history. Because it's one thing to start CrossFit a year ago and your body not be responding well for many reasons. But it's another thing to start CrossFit a year ago after years of HIIT training and body pump and cardio and marathons and soccer, whatever else you played.
So what we wanted to do is we wanted to break down for the clinician and like for the everyday human who's listening to this. I think if you want to do this for yourself will be helpful. The things that we consider when we talk to individuals about what dose of exercise is actually appropriate for you in your current season of life, not when you were 20, right now. There's a huge difference for a lot of people. And I think that people just want to say like, oh, well, this is what I've always done and I've always been able to do it, or I've always been X, Y, or Z. And it's like, okay, that's great. I hear you. It's frustrating that you're not able to do those things. And you have two choices. Like, you can continue to do what you're doing because it's what you've always done and what you've always been able to do, or you can choose to live in the now reality of what your capacity currently is. In my opinion, people are much better off in the latter of those two options. So the first thing that we have down here is season of life. So what do we mean by that?
This is probably the most important factor. If you're 20 and you have zero, I mean, not to say 20-year-olds don't have responsibilities, but less responsibilities, right? Usually they don't have as high demanding jobs. Usually they don't have children. Like, so maybe not even using the age, but understanding like what are your responsibilities in life, right? What kind of sleep are you able to get? Right? Like we're always talking about good sleep, but if you have young children, like my youngest was up in the middle of the night last night. I have no idea why, because he was mad about his socks. Like there's just different times of life where sleep might not be optimal. There's different seasons of life where, your work may be more demanding. You might be going through loss of some way, shape, or form. You may be caring for a parent or a family member, right? Like there's so many different things to consider when talking about season of life. So it does matter. Because when I was 20, 21, my responsibilities were less. I didn't have children. I didn't have a high demand job. I didn't have a house or mortgage to pay for. Like I had
Your
bills, but
cell
they
phone?
were, I think, yes, like less consequential. Like if I don't pay my mortgage, I could lose my house, like different things like that. And I wasn't married. I didn't have like anyone really depending on me. I didn't have a business that I ran. Like there's just so many different things. And I was able to get 8 hours of sleep whenever I wanted. And so that really matters. And the thing is that seasons change. I see, and this is coming from like a mom's perspective, like even with moms, it's not a death sentence to you'll never work out again or you'll never have goals again or you'll never train again. But a mom with a 1-year-old and a 4-year-old is much different than a mom with a 10-year-old and a 14-year-old. Now, that being said, that mom may also now be caring for a parent, right? Like, so it's just taking it into context and being gentle with yourself and understanding like the season of life matters because what's on your plate matters on how much stress your body can take. And exercise is a good stress, but it becomes a not so good stress when your plate is already full, when your bucket is runneth over, as we
Yeah, and I
say.
mean, I think even if things are great, like exercise is still a stress, and that still needs to be considered in the like measuring of the stress load, right? And so I actually have a workbook that I'm putting out for my clients of just all the not all, but like a pretty good comprehensive list of stressors for people. And I'm just going to read some of them off for the clinician out there listening who like may not be considering these things. So commute, having a sick pet, the mental load, being on social media, watching how much news is the person watching, which we've talked about before on the podcast, having poor health in any way, shape, or form. Like, are you constipated? Are you having period problems, infertility, subfertility? Loss of a child, loss of a parent, loss of anyone really. Mouth breathing, like if someone's mouth breathing, that's literally like putting their body into fight or flight. Low minerals, hormone swings, addiction, buying a house, wedding planning, things going on in the world, spiritual crises and disconnection. Like I'm going to stop because I'm just going on and on and on about all the things. But I think that this is such an important part of the conversation so that people understand like when people have a lot of these things going on, their workout load really does need to decrease. And, or if on the other hand, like life is smooth sailing, their job is great, they're working, they're paid for 40 hours, but they're working 20 and they don't have kids or they don't have young kids, that changes what the capacity that someone and their health is great and everything is kind of just smooth sailing. It changes the amount that they can do. But I think a lot of the times this is not looked at either by the clinician or the person themselves. And it really needs to be. And we had talked a little bit about before we started recording about utilizing different tools to kind of, as the clinician, to show your client or patient, like, hey, like, I hear what you're saying, but this is what I'm seeing in your blood work. This is what I'm seeing on your MSQ type of thing. And so are there certain things because I know there are for me that when you start to see on your MSQ or in blood work or different testing that you're like, okay, like this is a sign that our bucket overrunneth and we need to pull back?
Oh, I mean, it really depends. And also just another note on like the stress workbook, I do a stress timeline. A lot of times it can be helpful for your clients to do that because now you're not telling them. They are literally the
Yep.
ones circling or checking off or having to say. And when it comes from their mouth, all of a
Yeah.
sudden they're like, oh, right? Like a lot of people don't even realize the stuff that Danielle's talking about. They don't realize it's a stressor. a lot of people will either just say like, oh, I thought that was normal, right? Or like, I don't have it that
Right.
bad compared to somebody else. So it's not bad. But like, if that's comparative suffering, like somebody, it's just as stressful to you, even if it's not as stressful as you think, someone in a different scenario. So things that I see, symptoms wise are like unable to regulate body temperature, hair loss, fatigue, insomnia, any nutrient deficiencies could be an indication because if we're overexercising, overstressing, and not repleting appropriately, it's kind of like a yes and. It's not just the exercise, it's the lack of repletion. A low ferritin, a high TSH, potentially high cholesterol due to that high TSH. Sometimes I will see elevated like fasting glucose with a normal insulin, sometimes an elevated A1C with a normal insulin. I feel like I see that usually because they tend to not be insulin resistant. They tend to be more like their body is having this big stress response. And so we're getting more highs and lows in our blood sugars. What
I
about you?
agree with all of those. I really wanted to hammer the blood sugar one home, mostly because I've experienced that myself and I've seen it in clients too. And I think, especially in the conventional settings, this is overlooked for like, oh, you just need to eat less or you're not eating, and it just causes more problems because then like the under eating then becomes another stressor that now we're releasing more glycogen and it becomes glucose into the bloodstream. I see a lot of those. I see a lot of gut dysfunction in people. I think that stress just ruins. I mean, they're
Yeah.
most stressed people. They're lighting up like Christmas trees on their GI maps just because they're not super resilient. So they've got a lot of bad gut bugs. They aren't pooping. They've, probably have a high toxin load because they're not clearing things if they're constipated. I think the big one that I don't think you said this and I don't think I have yet either, but waking up in the middle of the night, it's such a huge red flag for me of I'm doing
Yes.
too much and especially exercise and a lot of like really good people in the exercise world will tell you this is the first thing that will happen if your exercise dose is not appropriate and you're underfed, right? So, if you're underfed, you can get it from either or both, really. And I think that that's like really common and again, there are other things that can cause all of these things. So it's taking into account the whole picture. Like if you have someone who's got a desk job and they're not exercising, like they're not doing too much physically. It's probably from lack of movement, right? Which can also be a problem. I think in both of our populations, we see more overdoing it.
I guess that's fair too. Yes. When I talked about all that blood, I feel like yes, you and I see more of that extreme just based on who our clientele is. Usually if someone is not working out enough, we might see other markers, some of the same similar ones. I would normally see a higher fasting insulin in someone who is working out less or not enough. That's like a big difference. Usually my ones who are working out too much, their fasting insulin is low or normal. But yes, that's a great point that there might be the extreme on the other side, which I sometimes see as well.
I do too. It's few and far
It's
between.
season of life.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think some season of life can, I see some moms who are working and they have a commute and it's like,
Oh, the commute.
when do I fit it in? Which, as you pointed out, is a stressor. And I think that that's important too, is when you're evaluating this person, understanding their day to day and understanding
Yeah.
one, are they literally stepping over dollar bills to pick up pennies and like waking up at 4 a.m. to work out just so they can fit it in their day? Or are they on the opposite side where they are sleeping, which is great, but they're literally like their life is so convenient they don't even have to walk far to the bathroom to get steps in. Like I think both ends of the
Yeah.
spectrum can be problematic. And so a good intake form, good MSQ, looking at a stress timeline, looking at blood work and piecing it together can help you understand, am I trying to get this person to work out more or am I trying to be like you're doing too much and let's scale back? Both of which can come with their own hurdles.
Yes. And I think one thing too that does need to be considered, and I want to preface this with like, just because you may fall in this bucket doesn't mean that you can't exercise or be physically active. But if you have a chronic medical condition, like something like I'm thinking like endometriosis or ulcerative colitis or Crohn's or like even some types of autoimmune diseases, I think that
Hashimoto's.
yeah, like there are consideration like your body it's dealing with some stuff and it's trying to regulate. And so I think that there are probably seasons where like you can push things harder, but I think with all of these other considerations like season of life and stressors, there is more, what's the word that I'm looking for? Like someone's more susceptible, but that's not the word I want to use. Like
Our brain cells
sensitive.
not connected today.
Like
There you
like
go.
they're more sensitive to having issues because of XY, Crohn's, ulcerative colitis, and endometriosis
Fair.
and things
Susceptible,
like
yeah.
that. Yeah, I just think that I'm
Yes.
not, and the message is not like, oh, tell your clients to not do any physical exercise. No, like those things are really beneficial, but if you're in an endo flare, like you need to sit down. You need to tell that client
Yeah.
to sit down and, maybe do some gentle stretching or whatever. And I just think that that needs to be a part of the conversation as well, because that is part of that person's body and their experience.
Yes, 100%. And that's where having a good intake form can help
Yeah.
too, because now you understand what their medical history is, but then you also can ask questions about like, what do you do that brings you joy? What are your coping
Yeah.
strategies? Do you have a therapist? Like, I can't tell you how many times I see on clients' intake form that their like form of joy and their therapy and their whatever is
All
exercise, and
exercise,
that's a
red
red
flag.
flag to me. It's okay if it's like a piece of the puzzle,
Totally.
but they also say like reading and knitting and petting my dog. Like if it's a part of the puzzle, fine, but like I can't tell you how many times I see it as the sole
So
like
scary.
thing, and I'm like, yeah, it's a red flag to me because I'm like, I get it. You and I love
Yeah.
movement. We love moving our body. We're not against it. And I think sometimes people think like, oh, they're crotchety old women saying don't work out, but like it's quite the
Yeah.
opposite. We're just trying to empower women to understand how exercise fits into your life without creating harm,
Yeah.
because it really can when you overdo it, and it's not therapy, it's therapeutic for some people.
Yeah. 100. I agree with all of that. Some of the other things that we wrote down that we wanted to talk about it was like the minimally, min, sending it down the bond.
I think the bond is broken today. My bond was lost in the middle of the night when dealing with stock issues.
Uh,
The minimum effective dose
yes.
of exercise, is
Yes.
that where we're
Yeah,
going?
that's where I
Okay.
was going.
Thank God there's notes.
It's not the brain cell or the bond working.
The minimum effective dose.
Yeah.
Yes. I think it's important to understand that for both ends of the spectrum of those who aren't working out enough or those who are working out too much, it's understanding like how to communicate with your clients what the minimum effective dose is for health and longevity. Because at the end of the day, that's what most people are seeking, right? They want to feel good in their body and they want to feel good in their body for as long as humanly possible. And so understanding what that might look like. So do you want to talk more about that for how we
Yeah.
determine that or how we help educate?
Like how we help determine minimal effective dose or
Yeah.
yeah, so I mean,
Yeah. And educate our clients on
so
it.
there is research on this to show like I'm going to stay with weight training. I do cardiovascular exercise, but I mean, God, I tell Brooke this all the time. I've been lifting weights as long as she's been alive on this planet. It's so weird.
It's not possible.
It's so strange. I know. I forget how quote unquote young she is compared to me. Anyway, not
Honestly, everyone's my age. I'm just like, oh, everyone's my age. And then like people tell me their age and I'm
wait,
like, that's
what?
weird.
Yeah. But with weight training, if you have already built muscle and you've been doing, weight training for a long time, if you lift weights one full body session a week, you will maintain your muscle mass. And I'm talking like 45 to 60 minutes a week. Okay? And if you want to gain muscle, if you want to make progress, lifting weights 2 days a week, 2 full body sessions will get you 80 to 85% of the way there. If you want to do 3 days, you're getting 90% of the benefits and the gains and the everything. This is assuming like sleep is on track and you're eating enough food and all of those other things are in line. But I think that
Following a good program that's not just
yes.
bands.
Yes. You have to be following a good program, and we're going to talk about that I think just probably in a couple of minutes, but it's so far less than people think. And listen, we were just talking too before we started recording. I just saw this clip from Peter Attia, and he was talking about what the two largest determinants are for longevity. And I believe what he said, I don't want to misquote anybody, but was that being strong gives you a 250% increase in your longevity. And the thing that was second was your VO2 max. So cardiorespiratory fitness is important. However, I think a lot of women are just doing it the wrong way because they've just been taught to like run to burn calories and to control their body. Whereas like really, if you do 2 quick HIIT sessions a week, or you do 1 HIIT session a week and then you go for like a 20 to 30 minute jog, like you're going to you're 80 to 85% of the way there with those 2 weightlifting sessions and those 2 quick, not, I'm going out to run 13 miles, I'm training for an ultra marathon. Even I would even say like, half marathon training for a lot of people which is, quote unquote, compared to marathons or ultra marathons, less mileage. Oh, but man, I just think depending on the season of life again and all of those other things, I where I personally think it's at and where it's at for me right now as a 41-year-old female concerned with optimal health and longevity and living a full life, I've been doing 2 to 3 weightlifting sessions a week, about 45 minutes with 2 sessions of HIIT. And it's like true HIIT, not like I'm going to like run my body into the ground for 60 minutes to get in the orange or the red or whatever at Orange Theory. It's like 15 seconds of dead sprinting with a 60-second recovery for 10 rounds. I'm done in what, 12, 13 minutes? I don't know. Math is not my forte. I don't know.
Something like that.
Yeah, I mean,
good enough. Close enough. Round it up.
Yeah.
Round it down.
Yeah, I mean, so if you're doing something like that, or if you want to do it you can do it on the rower, you can do it on a bike, whatever your thing is. I'm just using an assault runner right now is my choice of modality. Women need to, the problem is being consistent too. Because I feel like so many women, they do what you and I are talking about here for 2 weeks, and they're like, my body hasn't changed. And it's like, God forbid, first of all, God forbid your body didn't change. And what if your body never does change? And what if you just do what you're doing because it's good for you, right? Yeah. But nothing's going to change in 2 weeks. Like it takes at least a month. I have a post out where coming out next and probably right about when this airs, and I said, I double dog dare you to trade your endless cardio for what I just talked about. I'd circle back with me in a month. So those are my 2 cents about minimum effective dose.
Like, I just think people think that it's so much more than it is. And like the only difference between Danielle and I right now is I'm not doing any HIIT, and it's because anytime I've tried, I don't feel good. And it's just my current season of life. Like I'm almost 2 years postpartum. I feel like I'm maybe getting there, but anytime I've dabbled, I'm like, doesn't feel good yet. So I do 2 to 3 strength training sessions a week, and I do 1 to 2 cardio sessions a week of 20 to 30 minutes. Nothing outrageous. And I walk. And so I think it's also understanding, I think some people have this view of exercise this is where you have to ask questions for your client of, what do you consider to be exercise? Because some of them think that like it has to be a 60-minute CrossFit workout and I have to be flat on my back for it to count. And it's also educating them on that and understanding that is not, and for other people, it might be a 5-mile run or whatever, right? Like everyone will have their target of what they consider to be like, this is the workout. If I don't do this, it doesn't count. So some educating and counseling on that can be really helpful too, because working out can be a spectrum, right? And that can be based on the season of life. And so I've seen people on either end of the spectrum be like, well, I can't do the 60-minute workout, so I'm just going to do nothing. Or the people who don't really have the time and do the 60-minute workout anyway and feel like trash. And it's understanding there's this whole spectrum in between of what you can be doing for your fitness and your health that can be effective even at a quote unquote minimum dose. And I think if you're struggling with being able to cope without that movement, I'd really encourage them to either look into therapy or finding other hobbies too, right? Like what else lights you up? So those are my thoughts on the minimum effective dose.
Yeah. And just when we were talking about like good programming, like one of the things that we put down in our notes for this was if I have a personal training background. Laura also has like training background. So maybe we have a little bit more of an understanding of good programming than other clinicians, which doesn't make us better or worse or whatever. It just is. But if you don't understand that, like having a good referral network, which like plug for the collaborative, right? Like if you don't have a referral network, we have a couple of trainers in there and they're both really great. So, if you need a network of people who do other things than you, like, please come join us. But Yeah, I just think like having a good trainer to refer to, or having like, I refer a lot of the times to like the mind pump programs because I've done them. I've been doing them for years on and off. They have programs that are, most of their programs are 2 and 3 days a week. And I'm like, you're talking about like three guys who have over 20 years of experience in the fitness industry who are like, you don't need more. Stop it. Like they have a couple of programs that are like 4 and 5 days a week or body splits or whatever. And I rarely hear them saying like, I think you should do this program. They're always recommending like the 2 and 3 day a week programs or the 15-minute programs to people. But when you have a trainer or a program that you know is good, that's just templated, if you have somebody who's advanced who like doesn't need that one-on-one assistance, right? Like, they're getting the progressive overload. They're going to be lifting more weight over time. They're getting enough sets per body part per week. Like, instead of someone going into a gym and being like, well, I did some bicep curls and then I did a squat and then, that just also isn't going to cut it. Like, good for you for getting into the gym. I'm never going to discount somebody for moving their body. I never want to be that way. But if it's really the change in the health benefits and the muscle gain that you're looking for, like, if your program isn't good, you're kind of fucked. I mean that with all the love
Yeah.
in the world. Like, I really do.
But I also feel like from a clinician standpoint, like I don't ever tell somebody like I don't give them a prescription of what to do for movement. I give them a referral of saying, or I make suggestions of
Yeah.
like, hey, you're doing CrossFit 5 days a week and we're seeing X, Y, and Z that's not supportive of your health.
Mhm.
How do you feel about, this? Honestly, I usually when I'm not always, but I've had a lot of them be like, oh my God, like thank you. It's almost like they needed
Yes.
permission to not do that anymore. And it's sad because I'm like, oh my God, like you've just been like running on a hamster wheel, hoping for the best. And you just needed someone to tell you, like, hey, it's actually okay to sit down. It's okay to move your body 3 days a week and not 6 days a week. It's okay to not always hit it hard. So sometimes I just need that
Yeah.
permission from you. And then also having a good chat about like here's what could be really good for you to try. And I have a couple programs that I recommend to people and trainers that I recommend because I know that the programming, either I've done it myself or I trust the human behind it, that it's not going to be something that's going to drain them.
Yeah. No,
Um,
a
so.
100%. I had a thought when you were talking, and now the brain cell is.
Don't get me wrong. I think both of us come up with a lot of resistance from clients as well. It's not
Oh,
always
yeah.
sunshine and rainbows to be like, oh, okay, you said that. Thank you
I
for the permission. There's a
Yes,
lot of resistance that we both encounter. And
yeah.
I think that's where you have to get a little, it depends, right? Like I try to really hold space for these people and understand why it's so hard. And I ask a lot of questions and see what they pull from it. And then we talk a lot about therapy and either if they're in therapy and maybe they're not, some people are in therapy to check the box, right? And so we talk about like, is your therapist, do you think you're getting, what are you getting out of
Do you hate your
therapy? Like, do you
therapist
hate your
20
therapist? Yes.
20% of the time is
Yeah.
what I like to say.
Like, yes. Like, are we in the right therapy? Are we getting enough therapy? Are there other, do we have coping mechanisms? Or are our only coping mechanisms emotional eating and or exercise, both of which have a time and a
Sure.
place? And there's no shame. It's just understanding if those are our only coping mechanisms, obviously they're the only things that we're going to be able to utilize when we are stressed or anxious or sad or whatever.
Yes.
And so expanding that can be really helpful too, and showing people what that might be. Some people might not know, right?
Yeah.
Like if their whole identity is sport and exercise, it's going to take a little bit
To
longer than
do.
the
Mhm.
person who is just health conscious and works out 5 days a week because they think that's the right thing to do. So that's, it's
Yeah.
not always a quick change up.
I meet a lot of resistance, and I was gonna say, like, I don't write programs for people either. I refer to either a trainer or a program that I think would be good for someone because I've done it myself. But I had a really great conversation with a client this week. She's been around like kind of periphery in my world for a while and is finally working with me one on one. And we had our first session. She's got two kids under the age of 5. She's in her early 40s, and I think she was doing like a type of high intensity Pilates. I can't remember what it's exactly called. And then she was like lifting 4 days a week. And I'm like, listen, I I get it. I know, and I know that she loves to move her body, and I want her to move her body. She also has I mean, she works from home, but she also has like a higher, intensity type job. She's working 40 hours a week. I'm like, listen, are you open to trying this for a month? Like, let's bring it down to 2 days a week with the lifting, 2 days a week with the Pilates, and then just walk. Like, get your steps in, go for walks with your kids, play with your kids. And she was super receptive. And honestly, I mean, like, you and I both know this. Those are the people who do the best with us, like, who aren't like, just bucking the system the whole time that they're working with us. And like, we want the best for you, right? Like, you're, clinicians listening, like, you want the best for your clients. Like, we're not telling people stuff because we want you to be like overweight and out of shape and feel like crap. Like, we're telling you shit because like we want you to feel good, and we're seeing something from an outside lens that you're not, right? So I just think that like having that client is just, this is just for the clinicians listening, like, it's such a bright spot when you get somebody who's just like, okay, like, that's gonna really be hard for me. And again, I totally acknowledge that. Like, I mean, I don't know if we've actually talked about it on our podcast, but like, I just came off that pelvic floor flare where like I could do nothing. Like, nothing. I'm talking like benching hurt, like, was pulling my pelvic, like, in like lightweight, right? Like, I couldn't do an air squat. I couldn't walk. Like, it was awful, and it was a month. That's a long time for someone who has been like lifting weights since they basically came out of the womb. It was so hard, dude. Like, I get it. And even before that happened, I had been talking to Brooke about like, I think this is really a season of life where I need to pull back. I've been through a lot of really hard therapy stuff. I've got 2 businesses, 2 podcasts. Like, there's just a lot going on, and I was really feeling called to, and she's like, you know what, I think that's a really good call, and like, I'm really proud of you. Brooke, who is 12 years younger than me, like, giving me a pat on the head. I love her. But I realize how hard it is. And so if you're that person or the clinician who might be like having a hard time telling people that, like, I think like when I can talk about my personal journey with that stuff, like, it's really relatable because people hear in your voice like, wow, that was hard for her too. So I always find, I don't know, like, especially in therapy too, like, if any of my therapist now or in the past has like said like, hey, like, this is what my experience has been, I'm like, oh, okay, like, other people struggle too. Like, it's just not that it's nice to hear that other people are struggling, but it makes you feel less alone.
Yeah. And I think, as the clinician, we have to sometimes look at like in the mirror too and understand like, yeah, like, I mean, I've overtrained in my life for sure. And I had to look in the mirror hard during, miscarriage and pregnancies and postpartum. And I've changed significantly how I cope and how I deal with life and stress and working out. But I had to look in the mirror too. I can't be asking my clients to do something I'm not willing to do myself either. So that sometimes is a hard discussion as well. And this is never, it doesn't, I don't think either of us are saying never have goals and never train for anything, but your whole life should not be about training for something. And I think that's where we also see a lot of health complications come, because you're not meant to train for something forever.
No.
And extreme results require extreme measures to get there. And in order to run an ultramarathon, it's a lot, right? And to do it multiple times all year, every year is insane. And I think, unfortunately, in our society, we applaud the women who are doing the most. And so it's easy for you to think that that is normal, and it's not. And I don't shame the women who do it and the athletes who are reaching these amazing feats. I don't want to steal
their job.
from their correct. Right. Their full-time job is to train. They usually get 8 to 9 hours of sleep because it's part of their training plan. They're usually getting food made for them or have someone who helps them with all the other things. So yeah. But I think, I see it a lot in the postpartum world of just women wanting to get back and train for something. And I get it. I so deeply understand wanting to feel yourself again and wanting to feel more like yourself. And also it's usually not
the
season of
time.
life.
I know. And
it's not.
And I feel like, coming from me, it has different weight because I've not had kids, but I'm like, man, I've watched my friends go through this and I've really paid attention, and I really feel like I try to, do a good, like, for any other clinician who doesn't have kids out there and they're talking to moms. I think I told you about the real trend I saw out there that was like, unless you have kids, like, I don't want your advice, basically. And I was like really hurt about that because I feel like I really try to do a good job. But I would encourage you, if you don't have kids, to like ask your friends who are moms like questions, pay attention to like what their life looks like, and imagine being in their shoes. Like that.
Go stay with them for a week.
Yes. Yes. Go stay with them for a week.
You'll get the full picture.
Yes. And I would say I was about 80% of the way there, but there was a 20% where I was like, this is a lot.
Like, what is even happening? Why are there so many noises at all hours of the day?
I was closing Laura's the door to her laundry room because I'm like, I can't handle the washer.
There's too many noises. I'm like, I'm aware, fully aware.
We recommend a set of earplugs.
Yes. Yes.
Anyway, we have drifted, but
I think one last thing that I tell a lot of clients is to sometimes you have to do less now on the healing journey to be able to do more later. And that does not mean that I'm going to have you do less more and you're going to run marathons 20 times a year. It means that you're going to pull back now so that we can really heal and nourish your body to get you to a point where if you want to run a marathon in a couple of years, one per year, then great, right? Someone's going to come at me. They're going to be like, only one per year? Yes. Like it's a lot on the body, sirs and ma'ams. But yeah, I think that it is hard. And I have been told that before when I worked with a friend who was a dietitian. She said, I need you to do less now so you can do more later. And that was probably one of the biggest things that helped me overcome my desire to overtrain. I guess the desire was not to overtrain. The desire was to train, which became overtraining, especially in the season of life that I was in. And I think when people can see that this is not forever, sometimes that's helpful too, even though like it might turn into their forever because they might realize that the minimum effective dose is actually exactly what they need.
pretty fucking dope.
It is, honestly. It's nice to not feel like I constantly have to work out every day. Like I literally feel like there's 3 days a week where I'm like, okay, I'm going to try to fit this in my schedule. And then that's it.
Yeah.
Great. Anyway, any last remarks or tips and tricks for the practitioner?
No, I think
I feel like we covered that.
I think we've hit it all. The only other tip or trick I would say is like come join the collaborative to meet more people like you if you're not already there.
Love it.
Full plug.
Mic drop.
Okay, all right. Until next week, guys.
Bye.
Bye.